In a world searching for a light in the dark, there's only one two-man team with the balls to take you by the hand, lead you towards the light. That one team is RantWorthy Podcast. Welcome back, everybody. It's another Wednesday. Woo! June 6, 2018. I'm your host, Lee Power. My co-host, Ryan Curtis Schomburg.
What's going on?
And we are casting the pods from a secret bunker in the heartland of America. O-H-I-O. Cincinnati, to be exact. Sponsors, we have those. I don't have the copy in front of me because you know what? We just kind of threw this together. So, first sponsor is Ryan. Hit me with it.
It is Keto Delivered.
Keto Delivered. What is Keto Delivered? Well, they are the curators of keto goodness. They take the best keto-friendly ingredients, condiments, and snacks, send them to your doorstep every month. KetoDelivered.com. Also, Rash Guard Company.
Fighter Philosophy.
Go to Etsy, put in Fighter Philosophy, pick up a sweet rash guard, or you can go to fighterphilosophy.com.
Boom.
Bam. You know what I recently got obsessed with? And I know you know this because I was sending you pictures of it. I accidentally went down the Rubik's Cube
Yes,
tunnel.
you did.
Oh my gosh, dude. I'm so addicted. My family probably hates me right now because they'll be watching some movie or Frozen, and my daughter's stuck on Frozen right now. And while they're doing that and living life all together in the new place, I'm sitting there right next to them going like, if I could just get the yellow over there and swap this red and green. It's pathetic.
And there's patterns that you could just look up on the internet.
Dude, it took me so long for the very first one. The very first one, I think
You said 9 hours, I think.
Yeah,
right?
It took me like 5 hours on the first day and 4 hours on the second day. So I finally got it done in a 24-hour span. I only worked on it that long, but I pretty much put a shift in on a Rubik's Cube, and I finally got it. Now, last night I did one again, and twice, and I did one in 10 minutes. So at least I'm getting shorter.
Better.
And I know some goals, at least.
We got to get you one of those ones now that has like that giant-ass thing on it or whatever. It's like a bigger panel, and then have the ones that are the different
There's speed cubes.
What the fuck's a speed
So
cube?
so the one that I got, the reason I even got it, there's a Babies R Us that's by us, and it's going out of business. So at first it was like, you know, it's kid toys and clothes and bottles and all this bullshit, right? So they were like closing down the store and everything is 30% off. Well, then we were like 30% off. No one gives a shit about 30% off. So we were like, we're going to wait till it's 40% off and then 50. Well, now it's 60 to 70% off everything. So half the store doesn't have anything there. They're selling the
racking.
Seriously, the racking. They're selling the chairs that the employees sit in. Like,
yeah.
It's crazy. They're selling employees who are wearing the shirts. Just kidding. They don't do that.
Selling labor.
Yeah, they're selling labor. They're like, do you need this guy to do something around your house? Take him.
He's wash dishes.
Yeah, he'll paint. He'll do everything. But so I saw a Rubik's Cube, and there was a Rubik's Cube for like $6. It was like you pay $6. It was like $6 for a Rubik's Cube. Fuck it. You know what I mean? I'll get one. I've never done it. I always heard that people that could do it were smart. You know, and I was like, man, I want to be smart. So let me see what's going on. So I got it home and I started messing around with it. Oh man, it takes 2 hours just to get your head out of your ass on what it does. You know what I mean? Like at first I didn't realize so many things. I can get into way too many details, unfortunately, because I've learned so much in the last like 4 days about this thing. But it takes forever just for you to understand the mechanics of what goes where and certain pieces. Like if I was asking you about a Rubik's Cube, do you know that there's certain like squares that can't go other places? Like,
yeah, so
I didn't know that.
Like the middle on each one of them, that's how you determine
theirs.
what color goes to that side.
But like there are edge pieces like in the middle that can only go edge to edge. Like you can't make an edge show up on a corner, and you can't make a corner show up on an edge. I didn't know that. I thought that everything was just, at first I just assumed everything was like interchangeable.
I know that you use the center cube to determine what color goes on that side, and then you typically go to a cross pattern and then start working your corners in. Or at least I'm pretty sure that's typically how it's done.
That's how I did it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're supposed to start with a certain one, but that's pretty much what I ended up getting down to, is trying to go layer by layer, because otherwise what you end up doing is you almost get too random brained. You know what I mean? Like you start getting red together, but then you're like, oh, this green over here looks close, and all of a sudden you're just trying to solve only one little
side,
thing,
yeah.
and then all of a sudden you're going to the other side and the other side. And like I said, 2 hours later, I had gotten absolutely nowhere. And one of the first times that I almost got it, I got down to the last 3. I had every layer done. I got to the very top, and I sent you guys a picture. I was like, I'm so close. Well, I got that far one time, and I started trying to get those 3 in, and I completely mixed it all back up, and I had to start all over again. It's frustrating.
Yeah, I believe it.
I wish I had it here though. Like it's addicting. It is like a real puzzle.
Are you like thinking about it right now?
I swear on my life I do. Like I've been at work. I think it must be what these like millennial dorks do with like the fidget spinners.
Oh yeah.
It's like something to keep your mind active. I don't understand the fidget spinner whatsoever because there's nothing to it. You're just spinning something. But I could totally waste time with like a Rubik's Cube.
What about a fidget cube? You like those? The ones with the little light switch and the little
You're being
thing?
For real? That's real?
Yeah. It's got like a little so it's got like a joystick on it, like the okay, so like N64.
Okay.
Here, I'll just pull one up. We'll just look at it real quick. So this is a.
If we sound echoey, we apologize.
Yeah. So what we did was we moved to a different bunker, and because obviously we've been moving, and that's why this has been going on. And so we moved to a bunker that is not 10,000 degrees.
Yes.
And so right now we're recording an episode just so we can put something out there, but we're going to get some curtains and some stuff like that to kind of dampen this because it's literally a concrete room. So it's literally a bunker now. So
we're going to have, but what we do have in the works for everybody is a kind of a bunch of good things though. I mean, we have a new desk that we're going to have. We also have like a huge flat screen, and the idea is that we would kind of be opposite sides of each other on this desk to where you would see us, almost like if we were sitting in a booth where I would be on the left side, he'd be on the right side, and the camera would be looking at the booth like if you guys were the waitress, essentially, is the angle you would see us from. And at the very back of it, there's a TV there, and we have a big screen that if we were trying to show you guys something, you could see it right there. So it'll be almost like we're all sitting at a table, which is kind of what we originally envisioned a long time ago.
Yeah. So, and then it'll go more to, I mean, we'll still put the podcast out, but ultimately, YouTube is the goal on here, to create a YouTube channel and get more views from there. We can clip things out, put it on Facebook from there, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. So it's getting closer. So we have the camera, we have the tripod, we have the new table, we have the new flat screen, and we have the new spot that we're doing the podcast. So it is really, really, really close.
Yep. So next couple months we'll be putting all that together slowly but surely.
So fidget cube, what the fuck?
So it's got like a little light switch on it.
Okay.
It's got, this is like a joystick similar to a like N64 controller.
Okay.
And then you've got these little dudes here that kind of like click as you move them. Okay. You have a little ball bearing in there.
But is any of this to accomplish a goal?
No, it's not at all. So what it is it's literally just to keep your hands doing something. And then the other side is like 5 little buttons that look like a dice, like the number 5 on a dice.
Yeah.
And they're just little buttons that you can click on there and stuff. And people will get these so they can play with this and just keep them. It's like a stress ball,
that's
essentially.
Too far.
Yeah.
That's too much.
Yeah, so that's what the whole point of this is. But this is a fidget cube.
I'd say that, and then can you imagine me all of a sudden, like in the middle of a meeting, everyone's pulling out their phone because we're waiting on someone, and I pull out a Rubik's Cube like a fucking dork.
Yeah. And you're just that's like the original. That's before Game Boy.
Do I come off like a millennial like that, or do people just not understand and they think that maybe I'm smart? That's what I'm shooting for.
I'm into it.
I want people to just be confused. Really, it's just I like puzzles and I like challenging myself. That's the only reason I like it, and I have an obsessive personality. That's the reason I'm getting into it. But I wonder if other people look at it like, man, this guy must be a genius.
Yeah,
just playing with this thing all day. When really it's a mix between I want to seem smart and I like challenging myself, and that's about it.
Yeah, there you go. I like it.
I like it. Let's get into the news.
All right, so let's talk about one of the biggest pieces. So we kind of talked briefly the last time we recorded about ESPN.
Yeah, because we only had half of the deal at the time.
Yeah, so we signed it preemptively, but we talked about it preemptively, but we didn't have everything, all the details out yet. So let's talk about the fact that now ESPN has signed an official deal with the UFC taking the broadcasting rights, which is
Taking
just
everything.
It's crazy. So we're looking at now. We originally were looking at 15 fights that were going to be on ESPN Plus beginning in 2019. That deal itself was 5 years worth about $150 million. Now we're going to be moving into the fact that we're going to have over the span of the entire contract, it's going to be $1.5 billion, and it's going to have the 12 pay-per-view events, and then we'll also have more post-fight conference. So at this point, now I would say it actually makes sense to get ESPN Plus.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because now you're getting your pre-fight, your post-fight. You're going to get I'm sure there'll be prelims that are going to be on this and so on and so forth. So to run through there, can you imagine a day like when you first started watching MMA, did you ever think there was going to be a time when you could turn on ESPN and you could watch a fight on there? I mean, that's just insane.
When it was on Spike, I remember feeling surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, where they were doing the verses, with the fights on verses, like when John Jones fought Brandon Vera on verses, I thought that was crazy.
Yeah.
I thought Spike was crazy. When the Fox thing happened, I was like, oh shit, they finally did it. They finally went mainstream. To me, ESPN seems even crazier than Fox.
Well,
because
it's the peak.
Yeah, there is no higher network sports-wise that you could get on that's bigger than ESPN. What could be greater? You know what I mean? I mean, they are the leaders in sports when it comes to everything. Football, basketball, the whole everything that you can think of. It is the pinnacle. And I think when they grabbed everything, that made way more sense. And then on top of this, look at the deal that they had with Fox. You got to look at the landscape, right? So the landscape, they were saying that they wanted to make $250 million, $280, and everyone was shitting on it, right? They're like, the UFC doesn't have Conor right now. They don't have John Jones. They don't have Brock Lesnar. They don't have Ronda Rousey. They don't have all this stuff, and they're going to get nowhere near the deal that they want. And then I don't know if you've ever heard the term making chicken salad out of chicken shit. Mm-mm. That is exactly what happened with this deal. Now they're making $350 or $300 million a year. They somehow, when everyone thought the UFC was becoming the lowest it has been in a long time, the views are down more than ever. Pay-per-view just had its lowest pay-per-view ever, and somehow they doubled the amount of money they were making in the next year. They doubled it.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
So the thing with this is, and I talked about this the last podcast, was that, this really to me says now once we get our programming in place with this at ESPN, we start to see them bringing this up. We know now the, Stephen A. Smiths of the world, they're going to be talking about MMA all the time.
It's going to be weird.
It's going to be nuts. I'm so excited for that. This brings you in to legitimize what we have going on with this now. I mean, you have to say this is going to bring them into the major powers when it comes to major sports. So to put them in there and have this go. And the other big thing with this too is, we all know that the rankings were created by Fox itself. Yeah. If you want to talk about a network that's going to take those things seriously, it's going to be ESPN. They don't have anything else going on except for sports. It's not like Fox where there's a whole other world out there, and this is ESPN. I mean, that's what they do.
They live and die on sports.
So to say that they're going to let their rankings just kind of go all over the place, I can't imagine that's going to happen. I think we'll see an improvement from there. We'll see an improvement from the broadcast in general. It's going to be a big deal for MMA.
I know people consider Fox to be easy to get to, so you would think that it would blow up like the UFC and blow up MMA in general. But really, I think Fox has, like you said, so much other network things going on that just because you watch Fox doesn't mean you care about MMA or want to watch MMA. I don't know how many new fans came over because of Fox. I'm sure there's maybe some because they utilized it pretty well when they were using Nate Diaz and some other people because, he was on there several times. But with ESPN, people are into sports. They're into boxing. They're into being into things that are sports related. So I feel like ESPN is going to pander to the people that like getting into this kind of shit.
Well, here's what's perfect about it. So, I can tell you, let me talk about my dad. Here we go. This is a perfect example. Every morning when my dad wakes up, he turns on ESPN and he watches SportsCenter until he goes to work.
Right.
He's done it as long as I can remember. So, and I do that all the time too. I'll turn on SportsCenter and I'll sit there and watch it. Now we're going to move MMA into that window frame there, and they're going to be talking about that. Casual sports fans, it's just like you and I with the NBA Finals. When the NBA Finals roll around, we watch the NBA Finals because we've been paying attention to sport. We pay attention to sports in general. Right. It's a good story, so we go to watch. There will be people who will be sucked into watching MMA fights just because of ESPN.
Right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's a really good example because like I don't watch the NBA during the year. I don't watch the minuscule games. I don't care about the Timberwolves versus the fucking Rocket. That shit doesn't do anything for me. But when you get to the semifinals of the playoffs, I will watch probably every game. And then when you get to the finals, I will watch every single game because I know it's important. And I just like being up on the latest sports thing. Like I know what's going on in hockey right now. I don't know what's going on in baseball right now because it doesn't fucking matter right now. Nor does it ever matter because baseball sucks. But when it's time to go to the championship, though, I bet I do know what's going on. And that is where I'll pay attention. And if I'm going to watch 3 minutes of baseball, it's going to be during that time. Or if something was happening. So it's like with ESPN, yeah, I think you're right. When all of a sudden they sell, well, there's this big title fight. Say at some point Stipe beats DC and John Jones comes out from having his suspension and now it's John Jones versus Stipe. Yeah, like you said, people will probably be having that push to them so much from ESPN that they might just show up just because they're like, oh, this is a big fight. I'm supposed to watch this, right? This is a thing. Yeah, go ahead. And I'll tell you what, when a shitload of people care and watch boxing, when there is not that many boxers you need to follow. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
People can say from a matchup point of view, boxing is really exciting right now. But if you really look at the people that you need to care about, it isn't more than 10 people. 10 guys, if you knew their name and just watched them, you could stay pretty entertained with boxing. MMA, there's a good 40 right now that you should care about and be watching and are totally exciting, and you could, have a great watching experience just paying attention to those guys. There's way more to get into when it comes to MMA. There just is. Boxing nowadays, it's not that many people. I'm excited to see how this grows. I think it's going to grow. And you know who really benefits huge from this and kind of roll over into it? Like you were saying, now you're going to see SportsCenter talking about it. You're going to see the Stephen A. Smiths of the world. You're going to see people touching on this. And the thing is, though, a lot of those guys don't know shit about the sport. So they can't just pretend at all times to know the sport, right? So then that does what, though? That brings in fighters. That brings in real journalists. That brings up like Ariel Helwani. You know what I mean? Of course, he moves over to ESPN and gets hired by them. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what you need to do. And that to me was another like smart move by ESPN because it's like, yeah, you can't have Stephen A. Smith out there looking like an asshole who doesn't know what the hell he's talking about or Skip, all these other guys, that don't know shit, just making shit up. At one point, you're going to need to pander to the actual fans and hire people who are actually knowledgeable. And Ariel's obviously the person you go with in that instance, So it was exciting to hear that he's going over there because for a guy like me that's just super deep in this, I want to see somebody that is actually good go over to ESPN. And to see that the best person went over there is perfect.
Yeah, it's better for MMA in general. So glad to see that's we're going to see what comes out of that and hopefully all positives because it seems like it's off to the right start. So
did you see that Dana White interview? So he did like a scrum where he was like talking about a bunch of different things. It was like it wasn't a scrum. Actually, I think he updated it with a scrum recently, but he was on their Unfiltered UFC podcast or whatever.
I didn't see it, but I did see some of the news stories coming out of it.
He's talking like super candid. And I mean, they're talking about getting rid of the early weigh-ins. He was talking about people that were handpicking. He went over a bunch of different things. But when you hear that he's getting rid of the early weigh-ins, what was your first reaction?
Well, I think you have to do that. I mean, to me, there are too many. And then I think that the Darren Till video was the last straw when it came to that because
he looked fucked up in that video.
And he's like, there's too many times that we've seen guys who are being drug out of bathtubs that are crying and it just they don't want to go on and they shouldn't be doing that to try and make that early weigh, and that extra time that is so vital when it comes to making it. to wake up and have that extra time to do that, it's going to change things for sure. And look, since we've changed the weigh-in rules in the first place, how many people have we seen miss weight? More than we ever have.
Yeah,
so
they said that they did a study, not a study, but they just kind of crunched the numbers of 2 years before the change and now 2 years after the change. And the 2 years prior to the change, I think, for easy numbers, let's say it was 30, but I think it was like 34, and the number after was 61. But point is, it doubled.
Yeah.
Before it was 30, and after it was 60. That is clearly a problem. It may benefit, it doesn't take away from, it probably benefits some and not others. I'd say the problem is when you miss weight, you also now have more time to rehydrate. A lot of people thought that that's what the early weigh-in was for. It's meant to give you more time to rehydrate. Well, the problem is if you're a guy who's missing weight, well, you have more time to rehydrate.
Well, how many guys have we seen benefit from that too? That have won the fight.
Well, they're saying they're 7-0.
Yeah.
On fighters that have missed weight this year and fought anyway are 7-0.
And then you don't lose any. I mean, you could almost use it as strategy. Hey, take a pay cut here, but I'm going to get a step towards closer to the belt because of that. I mean, it's wild.
Well, look at some of these people though that are dropping 15, 20 pounds day before to get in a weight class. And then imagine them stopping short and then also having more time to gain weight back.
Right.
It's like you could almost get supersized on top of what you would usually get to. Because if you had to go, not like Mackenzie Dern is cutting usually 20 pounds last day, but say you're cutting 20 pounds down to 115. So you're going 135 to 115. And say after that day and a half, you make it back up to 130. Well, if you miss weight by 7 pounds, and then on top of that, you rehydrate and you get even longer to rehydrate, she may be making it back up to 135, 139, 140. She's probably gaining more weight back because she didn't have to go all the way down. So not only are you fighting a person that didn't deplete themselves the same way as you, but they're probably weighing more than they would ever have weighed because they missed weight and they had more time to rehydrate.
That's why we saw things like during the Darren Till fight where Wonderboy's camp said you can't be over this weight for the fight by a certain time.
Put a slight ceiling on him.
Yeah, so because you could argue at this point that people are doing it as strategy. Now, obviously, we know that's not the case with Darren Till based on the information that came out, but it's wild that these things are happening, and you could basically use it like that.
Well, it's also it's very multifaceted because in a way that you think that you're giving people more time to rehydrate, you're also messing up the time in which people need to cut weight though. Because it's so early in the morning, it's right after you're done sleeping. So it's like for us, we've always had to cut weight for tournaments and things like that. And sometimes you have to weigh in the mornings. Now, sometimes you get to weigh in the day before and do it in the afternoon. But I've been in plenty of tournaments where you had to weigh in morning. So it's like that's tough because I damn near got to go to bed on weight because otherwise I'm waking up at 5 or 6 in the morning. I got to cut more weight. That's really hard to do. And where when you're doing it at night, you can get your work done throughout the day. You have plenty of time to assess and know where you're at. Where when you're doing it in the morning, you don't have much time to react. You wake up and for some reason you didn't lose as much as you thought you would overnight, and now you need to crunch 2 or 3 more pounds in the morning. It's hard to do. I also think with the early weigh-ins, I think you keep people around in the weight class that should probably go up. You know what I'm saying? Like because if you have less time to rehydrate, and where that window is smaller, you're 24 hours before instead of like the 36 hour. I think when people are probably scared to not get totally rehydrated. So I wonder if guys start thinking, well, if I'm not going to get fully rehydrated, I probably should just go up a weight class. Where when it's in the morning, like Eddie Alvarez, he was saying on Twitter, he likes the early weigh-ins. What I'd say is because you're big as fuck, and you need a good 36-hour window to get your shit back together. That makes sense why you like that, but you should probably go to like 170 then. You know what I'm saying? Because if you weighed in 24 hours before and you're not going to be able to get rehydrated, you probably shouldn't be fighting at 155 then.
Yeah.
So hopefully going back to the old school way of doing it, maybe it'll force some people to go back up in weight.
So what's the time? What will the time be then? What was it before?
It was like the ceremonial weigh-ins.
Oh, so
like you were pretty much finding out when guys were going on the scale. Now, I don't know if they'll change that because that used to be kind of the fucked up part of it is you used to find out like when they did the ceremonial weigh-in. But to me, that's what I liked.
Yeah, because
I used to watch the ceremonial weigh-ins. Like,
yeah.
I watched that because, not ceremonial, I call them that because now it is ceremonial because it's fake. But I used to love the weigh-ins because that was almost a little bit of the drama. You know,
Right.
like a card coming up like 225 this weekend. I love all the things that are getting me hype, right? I love watching the embeddeds. I love watching the phone call the conference calls. I love watching the highlight reels. I love all this shit. So for me, that was just another piece of drama. Like you're watching the weigh-ins and you're hoping everybody makes weight. I'm watching every single one of them because I want to know, did everybody make weight? Where with right now, everybody weighs in the morning. Why do I need to watch the ceremonial weigh-in? It's fake. Like a person steps on a scale, they're not really weighing in, and then they square them off. It doesn't really make much sense. Why are we even having this anymore? And you can tell because look at the attendance. The attendance for those things have gone way down because why? We already know. We used to go there because it was an event in itself.
Right.
You're in Vegas and they're having the weigh-ins. Well, that was kind of a thing you wanted to go see. They'll have like two people up there answering questions and talking for like an hour. They'll have John Anik go up and answer questions on shit, and then you have the fucking weigh-ins. So that's how they used to do it. Weigh-ins were at 7 o'clock at night, and those were the real weigh-ins, and they walked up, and that's when you figured it out right then.
Yeah, I remember that. It's interesting to think about. Yeah, because it really changes everything from that standpoint. It's like exactly like you said. It adds more drama to it, and you're really looking at it saying, okay, please, everybody make weight, and then you can say from there, oh well, they may have to pull the towel out or this or that. Right. It's all drama that's right there.
Well, and I think also you have to like. I feel like that's another like performance, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. You have to go get it. Like you have to not go get it. You have to be on point because you're getting ready to walk up on stage in front of all these people who are hoping you weigh in. I feel like it makes people care just that tiny bit more.
Well, the other thing too is you used to talk about this all the time. Is like you would watch the weigh-ins to see how somebody looks too. Yeah. So
I used to change bets. Based on what I used to not want to make bet unless it was like a clear line that I thought was like fucked up. But most of the time, I would not want to take bets until I saw weigh-ins because that weigh-ins tells you a shitload. Yeah. You can just watch and see what guys look like and be like, man, if it was close and they look as depleted as they do, I don't know if I want to take that guy anymore. Or if someone looks shaky or shitty like the Travis Luter back in the day where he looked all gaunt and cheeks sucked in. I'm like, man, I don't know if we should. I don't think I should take that guy. That's not safe money, so I'm gonna get on out of here. I used to like when it was an event, and I would love to go back to that. I can't tell you the last time I watched weigh-ins. I mean, I never watch them anymore. Ever since they went to the morning ones, I don't watch them anymore.
I don't watch them unless there's like unless I see drama on online for like a face-off or something.
Yeah, like a push.
Yeah, it's exactly
tense stare down between.
Yeah, that's it.
So Dana talked about the early weigh-ins, and then he talked about, which brings up the Yair Rodriguez thing, but he talked about the hand-picking fights.
Do you think that's weird, like how they handled that whole thing? Because we're getting some answers now and kind of seeing how things are unfolding. But based on it's interesting to see how he was released, and then so Yair Rodriguez was released for not taking fights.
Yep.
He goes and does a whole bunch of interviews. He tells his side of the story. The UFC then basically, from what I can tell, offer him now like, hey, you take this fight and we'll see, and you can go from there. Well, now all of a sudden the fight that was causing the problem in the first place, now he's just magically taken.
Yeah.
So it goes to show that he obviously, fell in line. It's very interesting to see how they handled it. And, we kind of talked about beforehand how it's showing that you toe the line for a while and you can get away with saying certain things, but where do you draw the line? And with a guy like Yair Rodriguez, who's fresh to the UFC, you're not bringing enough to the table to where you have that kind of pull. So you better be the yes man at that point. And they're showing like, hey, this is it. You're not above us.
And did you hear him like where he said, well, if I wanted to fight here. But if I was going to fight over there, I wanted them to pay me more. And if I wanted to fight over here, I wanted to pay me more.
Yeah.
You have heard more in the last 2 years, people talking like this. Really, ever since the sale, right? I think once people realized that the UFC was a multi-billion dollar company, people started thinking like, hey, it's time for me to get a piece of this pie. And you started seeing guys like TJ Dillashaw flexing a little bit, or Demetrius Johnson flexing a little bit. Everyone started flexing just a little bit. People asking for a little bit more money. People negotiating last second. People don't want to take fights unless you pay them this. And I was wondering when what was going to be the last straw. I was wondering when it was going to happen, and it seems like they finally have hit it. Like, it's time to stop letting the inmates run the asylum kind of thing. And believe me, I'm all for the fighters. I want them to make these deals, pressure the UFC. But at one point, the UFC as a business, they have to be smart.
Right.
And you have to take control back. You can't let the fighters just say, well, we're not fighting unless you pay me this. We're not doing, because they're not unionized yet. They haven't got their shit together when it comes to that stuff. So then you need to control your business and take control back. And if people want to start saying, hey, I'm not fighting them unless you do this, and I'm not fighting them because that'd be bad for my career, or they're boring, and then UFC goes, oh yeah, well, check this out. Get the fuck out of here then.
Yeah.
Because we're a promoter. You know what I'm saying? And you do work for us. So if you're saying you're working for us and you're going to do something for us, and we say you're fighting fighter A, you're fucking fighting fighter A. They've said yes. You say yes, or you don't need to be in the UFC. I get it from a company point of view. I really do.
Well, from their standpoint too, think about how, we've talked at length about how the cards have been weak now, and we have things like that going on. You have to kind of feel for the company at that point, because how hard is it to build a card when you have all these guys who have turned into this, who are I'm not fighting unless it's this, or I'm not fighting unless it's that. Plus you're dealing with the weigh-in thing like we were just talking about. I mean, how hard is it to build a card? Let's say a little prayer here that 225 is safe for this weekend, and because who knows at this point, we know leading up until like the day before the actual
never safe.
The hour before the fight, and it's not safe at all. And so for the company to say now, hey, this is the last straw. And it's one thing when you, like I said, when it's the TJ Dillashaws, the, Demetrius Johnson. It's another when it's Yair Rodriguez.
Right.
You don't have pull.
Right.
You're not Conor McGregor. You need to just stay in line. I mean, that's where you got to be, to think that you have the ability to pick and choose where you're going. You just need to be a company man and hope to God that it works out. I mean, it's crazy.
Well, I mean, you need to win fights.
Right.
It's like, why did all these other people have pull? Because they fought everybody and beat everybody. And then you start getting pull. You can't be beating a bunch of guys like Alex Caceres and some other random people that just are not great, or not really on your level. And then, they pushed him too fast, and he fought Frankie, loses, and then he's out for a year and then comes back and think that you have pull. You don't have pull. You are a middle of the pack guy who has a lot of potential, could be somebody huge one day for all we know. And I mean, he has all the makings of a guy that could be a star. But that doesn't mean that now you have pull. Just because you're on the rise doesn't mean you have pull.
Well, and I know matchups makes fights too, but I don't want to question or not whether the champion is the champion, and because he was picking and choosing his path. Same thing with Conor too. He has this legacy, but there's always that question mark of, what if he fought a wrestler? I mean, look what happened with Chad Mendez on short notice.
Right.
And then you go in there and, hey, it's obvious that he's avoided these types of fighters. So I don't want to question whether my champion is the champion or not, and whether he can be beat. You should be the undisputed champion, period. You are the best at that time in that weight class.
And that's the thing too, is if you're winning in spectacular fashion and they like you and you are a person who has that stardom in you, then they're going to give you favorable matchups because they want you to do good. Look at Darren Till. I mean, he's getting matchups that are like that, and it's no different for you. And the thing is, Yair, they're giving him matchups that are fun too. Magomed Sharipov, like, that is a sick fight. I don't know why you wouldn't take that fight, because if you can win that fight, you're going to take some serious steam off Magomed Sharipov. I mean,
you could lose that fight and still come out okay.
Yeah, people won't care. Like, no one's looking at Darren Till and Wonderboy right now and going, damn, Wonderboy he sucks. I mean, all you got, those two, I mean, Yair and Magomed, like, those two guys, that could be such a crazy fight. They both have outrageous, super fun styles. They're so creative in there, and in different ways. I just feel like, yeah, even the loser of that fight, like it wouldn't even matter. You're still both on the rise. Like people still look at you as the prospect of that division.
Well, think about the press that Kyle Bosniak got after the
by taking an ass kicking for 3 rounds.
It's just
people loved him
to hang into the fight and deliver a good product to the people. It doesn't always matter if you win or lose. Your stock can still go up. What really kills your stock? You want to know what kills your stock more than anything? Not being in the octagon. Period.
Right.
I mean, look at Conor. You can't say that his stock is as high as it was because he hasn't been in the octagon.
That's true.
And people are going to stop caring and are going to stop talking about him, and he's going to fall by the wayside if he doesn't make it back in there.
And the thing is, and we're mildly hypocritical, because remember when we were talking about the TJ Dillashaw and DJ fight back in the day, and we're like, hey, if you're a fighter, get all you can get. And that's the thing. You got to be able to play that middle ground. I'm not saying be the hard-headed person who's always bucking against your boss and the system. You can't be that guy, but you also can't be the guy that's always letting himself be taken advantage of too. There is a middle ground. I'm not saying be a pushover and let them just fuck your brains out, but I'm also not saying be Leslie Smith, who is totally complicated and giving them shit at all fucking times to where you're the victim at all times.
You got to pick and choose your battles, and then when you are playing the company man here and there, and you're doing everything they want you to do, then you can find those windows where you can say, listen, I know we got this going on. Is there any way I could get this just to kind of show in good faith here because I've done all this, and this, and this. You got to pick your battles, and you got to play both sides of the coin if you want to do that. So
it seems like people are also mildly taking in the boxing rhetoric of trying to have the perfect careers. Like I always thought that was what was so awesome about MMA, that people didn't care if you lost. You can lose in MMA and no one give a fuck. It's not a big deal. Like that's the thing. In boxing, you will take this big name and put them in 30 squash matches. The UFC isn't like that. You have super high caliber guys fighting each other all the time. Losing there does not matter as much. So these guys that want to protect these perfect careers, and I can't lose. I don't want to lose one. I can't lose two. You absolutely can. And if you're putting your heart out there and you're showing grit, people don't give a fuck if you lose. Like you said, Bosniak, people will watch him now. I don't think anybody ever knew who that guy was. And now people will watch him just because he had heart and he stayed in there while getting his ass kicked for 3 rounds. And by the time it got to the last minute, he was winning portions of the fight. Well, and if it would win another 2 rounds, it might have went a different way.
I mean, like Cowboy Cerrone, for example. I mean, he's lost, 3 out of his last 4? Yeah. You think people aren't going to... Nobody cares. If he comes up there, people are going to watch, and it's the way it is. Like, you're exactly right. The boxing thing is kind of like... It's people who are... It's almost like crossover fans who get into this mindset that you have to have a... No, it's what have you done for me lately? You can win 3 or 4 fights in a row in the UFC and become a champion, and then drop 2 or 3 in a row.
And it's the mentality of the fighter too. It's like they need to understand that also. Like I think they look at boxing like I need to keep it perfect, and you really don't. You're
going to tell me Frankie Edgar isn't one of the best ever now, that since he took that loss, and come on now.
But isn't that what's kind of crazy though? You look at the people that as real fans who we look up to, or even the champions that we super respect, they're almost all guys who fought everybody. If you really look at the people that you like the most, they're almost all people that fought anybody and everybody.
Absolutely.
I mean, like there are certain times where we can look back at John Jones, and hindsight is 20/20. But there are certain fights that John Jones took at the beginning that were probably not smart for his career. There's no way. Afterwards, it looks like, oh, he just ran through Ryan Bader. He ran through Brandon Vera.
But at the
time,
he
ran through Stephan Bonner. He ran through a bunch of these guys. But at the time, it was like prospect versus prospect. You're getting ready to kill off a prospect with this fight. And I remember specifically with John Jones and Ryan Bader, I was like pissed at the time. Because there was a certain time when Ryan Bader and John Jones were the 2 new kids on the street that were both fucking people up. And it was like, putting them together, you're killing off one of your prospects. And then he just demolishes Ryan Bader. And it's like, but on paper, that was actually kind of like why do you want to kill off John Jones? I remember thinking that specifically, like, man, they finally gave him somebody that might be able to beat him. I don't know. And I remember the Brandon Vera thing. It's like, is Brandon going to have too much jiu-jitsu? Is he going to have too good a stand-up? Who knows? And Stephan Bonner was like his second fight in the UFC. That guy went 3 of the hardest crazy rounds with a guy that was a 205 champion in Forrest Griffin. And they've had close fights back and forth. And then he just beat the shit out of Stephan Bonner. And that was his second fight. That could have been too much. You know what I mean?
Right.
So a lot of these guys at the beginning, they fight people that are, like I said, hindsight's 20/20. But at the time, they gave them some shitty matchups. But you got to just beat the fuck out of those people. You have to go win fights. And like you said, the way to get your stock up and make yourself more valuable is to go fight. You got to be out there. The longer you stay out, the people will just forget about you and they don't care anymore. And once they don't care, you're losing cash.
Absolutely. So let's talk about UFC Liverpool briefly. There wasn't a whole lot to talk about there. We can talk a little bit about the main event, obviously, and then I'm sure you want to touch on Neil Magny and his win. So we can go kind of there. He pulled off another one, and then we didn't really have much else from there. Jason Knight lost. There was a good first round in that fight, and he lost the decision in there. But let's really focus on the Darren Till decision because it's the biggest storyline from that.
It's still out there, right? It's crazy because I feel like people aren't really talking about the decision too much, but the people on the desk and like certain people that are in interviews with Thompson and Till, that's the first thing they ask people is like, how did you score it? Why do you think you won? Everyone's talking about it from like the inside people. I'm surprised there aren't larger audiences talking.
So let's talk about first. Let's set the stage here for how we watched this fight.
Yep.
Because we watched this fight in the middle of moving a whole bunch of your stuff.
Yeah.
And so when this fight came on, we stopped. There were probably 30 boxes stacked up in the living room in almost a perfect shape around the television.
Yeah.
And you were standing. I had carved out a spot on the couch for your grandparents. And then I was sitting over there next to them. And we're watching the fights in between moving. I think we had the doors on the car still open.
Yeah, they were.
So, and we're loading the car up to watch this fight as we're going. And we were kind of talking about it. It was funny because your grandpa was going on and on.
Hilarious.
The young guy, and he couldn't figure out which guy was the young guy. And so
he's like, young guys always win. They got the wind.
And you were like, which guy are you talking about? And he was talking about
it's calling Stephen Thompson was the young guy.
He was like, he's the old guy.
I was like, oddly enough, Wonderboy is the man. That's the wrong one, Grandpa.
And so we watched that fight, and both of us kind of felt the same way about it. We thought
I didn't even watch the decision. I remember I watched the 5th round, and I thought to myself, clearly Darren had dropped it. I was like, he's no way did he get 3 rounds.
So before we get to that, I wanted to talk about two. So talk about the fact that when we were discussing the fight as we were watching it, you were talking about when Darren Till was winning the fight. So let's talk about that before we move to the decision. So as he was pressing forward.
Right, yeah.
And as he got aggressive, that's when we saw him winning exchanges.
And started throwing in the exchanges. The thing is when you go like strike for strike, not throwing combinations, it is very hard to beat a guy like Stephen Thompson. When Stephen gets caught is when people get in his face, make it a dogfight, because that's when you will catch him. But to just go in and out, that is playing Stephen's game. And that's what drove me absolutely insane.
It's what we saw Shogun do against Machida. And that's where we got that we figured out the formula to beating those karate style fighters.
You got to get them to throw more than one punch, or you need to get on the inside that makes them react, and then you have to counter off of their reaction. You have to get on the inside, get them to react so that you can catch them. And which is how Lyoto got knocked out. It was the same thing. Shogun gave the appearance of it was time for Machida to blitz in. He blitzes in, catches him with the overhand right over the hand that was extended, and knocks Machida out. It's getting them to throw. And you notice when in the 5th round, when he finally did catch Thompson, was that. It's like staying pressured on him, making Stephen feel pressured enough to where he finally needed to throw in a time that Darren was hoping he would throw. So the counter was there, boom, bangs it right off the side of his fucking ear, and he goes down. And it's like when he went hard and was the pressure Darren Till fighter is when he put him in trouble. I told you ahead of time, what worried me about this fight is that Darren Till went out there saying, I'm not going to be the Darren Till that everyone expects me to be. Everyone wants me to be the super aggressive guy who comes in there and gets knocked out by Steven, but that's not what I'm going to do. And that worried me Because I'm like, so you mean you're going to go shot for shot with Stephen Thompson? That worries me. That I think this all of a sudden it became, well, this is going to be boring. You both aren't going to land shit, and he's going to probably win on points. Because if you're going to play his game, I think he's going to be better at that game. Now, watching it, though, I didn't see in any shape or form at the time. Now, I haven't rewatched it. I could barely even hear the commentary at the time because my grandpa was 80 and Sicilian. And he was giving his opinions, and that was funnier than the actual commentary. So I need to rewatch it. But while watching it on the spot, I didn't see where Darren won more than 2 rounds at all. I just didn't see it.
He arguably lost every round.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been surprised if they said, like a 4-1. He clearly won the 5th, like 100%. But I thought it was going to be like a 4-1 for Thompson. I thought it was pretty clear. I didn't understand. And this is the thing too. And people will look at the CompuStrike and be like, well, look at the CompuStrike. It shows that Darren Till won. And I understand that it shows that he's up by a couple strikes, but you got to look at it round for round. You can't look at total. So when you look at round for round, there were certain rounds that were like 5 for Stephen Thompson and 4 for Darren Till. Like literally in one round, the difference was 1 strike. I think there was 3 rounds that were by 1 strike, 8-9, 5-6. I mean, that's the entire thing. And the strikes, I know that they want to give Octagon Control a certain amount, but to me, there was a certain amount of effective striking that if you both land the same amount, it was like Darren's strikes that he was landing would be like a low calf kick that was nothing, where Stephen Thompson's shot that he was landing was Darren pressuring him and jabbing him to where his entire head cocked back and it would throw spit across the octagon. I don't consider those two. You might on paper look at that as 1-1. I don't see that as 1-1 at all.
Yeah, so
that is a clear Thompson thing right there.
This is interesting because this kind of, so from like a baseball standpoint, right? You have these people who are into like the sabermetrics and the stats and so on and so forth, and you got to kind of balance between the two. And one of the things that we talk about is knowing the difference between the eyeball test and the sabermetrics, and you got to take both to tell the story.
Yeah.
And even more in MMA, the eyeball test tells you way more than the CompuStrike does. And not to mention the fact that the CompuStrike doesn't factor in, and not that it was a problem in this fight, but it doesn't factor in submission attempts and so on and so forth, and all these things where if a guy was on top in the ground, on the ground, but the guy was attempting submissions the entire time, and then the round ended with him attempting 3 straight submissions or so on and so forth. Well, how do you score that for the guy? Are you going to give him, he lands 3 strikes and that goes into the CompuStrike and he gets more credit for it there? That's ridiculous. That's not the way it should work. So to understand that the eyeball test has got to serve more. The fight metric is more there to help aid the story, but it doesn't tell the story.
To be fair, it's like when you look at it's weird though, because like you were saying, from the eyeball test, I didn't see how it was close. But when you do break it down round by round and you see that it was like 4 strikes to 5 strikes, 8 strikes to 9 strikes, obviously it was very, very close. And it going in the opposite direction, I'm not offended by it going the other direction, because if it's that close on strikes, obviously it could go either way. So, but when I was watching it, it seemed very clear.
I thought so too.
And then when they went to the panel, it seemed very. Everybody on the panel was saying the exact same thing. Whether it was Chiesa, Bisping, Tyron Woodley, Karen Bryant, everybody is saying Stephen Thompson's clearly got this. And then when you go to, not that journalists know everything, but when you go to all the main outlets and you looked at all of them, they made like a compiling of everybody's scores from MMA Junkie and BJPen.com and MMA Fighting, all SureDog, everybody. It was like out of 15 people, 2 of them thought it was Till, and then 13 of them, these are major outlets, 13 of them all said Stephen Thompson. So it's like the pros think that it was Thompson. All the media people from these huge websites, they all think that it was Thompson. You got John McCarthy, who is like the one out there in California training judges and training refs. He's saying it's Thompson and telling you why. It's like, to me, it looked like Thompson won that fight. But go ahead. What were you going to say?
So, but here's the good part about this is, right? So
okay, because this is exactly where I think
positive.
I was going. Yeah.
So
because I don't care.
The story on this is what really matters, because let's paint the whole picture here, right? So you have just created a hero in Europe right as we are having the biggest name in British MMA who is retiring.
Right.
So with Darren Till, to even go even deeper into it, so Liverpool loses the Champions Cup, right?
Yep. The
day before, Darren Till walks out to Sweet Caroline, and the crowd goes, I mean, if you haven't seen this
video is incredible.
I have goosebumps just thinking about it because it is unbelievable. And, I watched it multiple times just thinking to myself, I can't imagine what it would be like to be somebody who is walking out and to receive that.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy.
It was insane. I mean, to get the hype that you must feel walking into the octagon was unbelievable. So you have this. He gets a hard-fought victory and then grabs the mic at the end and just goes completely crazy.
Talk serious shit. It was awesome.
And so you just created the next monster from that area, to go there, to be in his hometown, to bring that. Whether it's a controversial decision or not, we won't remember any of that. It's just going to be that story. You just created even more lore for him there, and it's going to take over, and which leads us right into what the Bisping thing, with him retiring.
Well, and the thing is, regardless, Darren Till was just in a striking battle with arguably the best striker in that. I mean, in probably the UFC. I mean, he's up there, 56-0 in kickboxing, and obviously has his accolades in the UFC. And he stood toe to toe with him for 5 rounds, and in most cases outstruck him on paper and was right there at all times. That is impressive as hell. And like I was saying that day, I think that it would be a bad decision if Till gets this decision. I think it would be bad. But at the end of the day, I don't care. Because it isn't me. I try not to have those attachments to fights to where I'm like, but damn it, my guy. I like storylines most. You know what I mean? I like things to feel progressive, and I like new contenders coming up. From a storyline point of view, we said this a long time ago. If Stephen Thompson wins that fight, that is not good for us. We're not gonna see another him versus Woodley fight anytime soon. So for me, I don't want him to win. I got to be honest. I wanted Till to win because I want the new blood. I want the new matchups. Because if Darren Till gets to fight for the title next, okay. If he gets to fight the loser of Rafael dos Anjos and Kobe Covington, okay. If he now has to fight Usman because he's up there because he beat Damian, okay. I like that now. Darren Till has nothing but top 6, top 7 type fights, and I love every single one of them. The loser of those fights, I'm totally into. If he was to fight Ponzinibbio, I'm totally fine with it. Fight Usman, sure. If he wants to fight Robbie Lawler, why not? He's going to fight Masvidal. Good. I like that too. I don't care. Any top 7 fight for Darren Till right now, I love, and it makes total sense.
Yeah, so it's awesome. And that kind of, like I said, it kind of segues into Michael Bisping retiring officially, which is good. We kind of learned that he had some more health issues, more than we knew about. And what it really does is it just kind of solidifies. I mean, it's funny because this is a guy that I really hated for a long time.
I tried selling you on him for a long time.
You did.
You eventually came around.
I did. And it's something, I tell you what, with him in DC, it's so much more seeing their personality on the outside of the octagon, and you start to learn how these guys are and see, why they're motivated to do the things they are. And any guy who is willing to put oil into his eyeball to continue to fight, I mean, and then he's, in the interview he did with Ariel this week when he's talking about how in the one fight he was trying to survive and he got blood in his good eye. Like, in his good eye.
Right.
Like, legitimately cannot see out of his other one.
Anderson fight.
And it's just crazy to me. And a guy who was so motivated to win the belt And he talks about how in life it's the only thing that ever mattered to him, and it's the only thing he's ever been good at, and all these avenues that it's open for him. And he's just a really somebody who appreciates the sport and has given so much to us. And so to have him retire where he is, especially after the last few years, is just absolutely incredible.
I like guys like him and DC because they so clearly are doing it for their family. You know what I mean? Some guys are like a Mike Perry. It's just a guy that likes to fight, and I can appreciate that too. There's a lot of guys that are just out there like, I'm a fighter. Darren Till is a fighter. Different guys are fighters. But some people are out there, it seems like specifically because I'm providing for my family. The better I am at this, the more my family has. And I can appreciate that. You know, if you're a person that's in a relationship or has kids or you're married or whatever, you can understand that grind. Like when you are with a girl or a guy, whatever out there, and you have an apartment or you have a house or you have something, you start feeling a brand new so I don't even know how to describe it. This brand new responsibility of like, okay, me and this person live together. It is my responsibility to take care of them. And you almost get a new motivation. Like if I'm only making $13 an hour and you're like, shit, but I'm barely skating by and my girl isn't eating that well and we're both eating ramen noodle every single day. Well, all of a sudden you're like, man, I need to not be this $13 an hour guy. I need to be a fucking $18 an hour guy. We got to eat, and I want to give her nice things and buy her nice clothes, and I want to set up our place to look as good as possible. And you know what I mean? You want to build that life, and then you have kids, and then you want to provide for your kid. And when you start seeing that other people think like that, that's what I like. I like that redeeming factor that he's a real person. Because at the end of the day, that's what I liked about Michael Bisping is, like I used to always say to you, yeah, this guy put oil in his eye so he could continue fighting. That's one of the most badass things I've ever heard in my life. He should stop fighting and fix his wonky eye that like points in a wrong direction because he has a detached retina. But he says, I want to keep having the potential of getting punched in the fucking face so I can make money for my family. That is the most superhero, badass shit ever. And then you hear him talk on top of that where he says his proudest moment was when he was in his car with the belt with his family and his kids. Come on. I mean, like, how can you not love that?
Yeah.
That to me, like, it's funny because I've been hearing everybody on all these shows say, what was your favorite Michael Bisping moment, you know? And I don't know about you. I feel like everybody should probably have the same ones. And I would assume you probably will have the same ones. But it's like, I feel like I have 3 now because of that interview. It's like, for me, number 1 was seeing him win the championship was just wild. You know, how he did it. He did it against a guy that had already half knocked him out and then choked him with one arm, embarrassed him, looked like he was going to never make it back to the title ever again. And to come back on short notice, fat belly, coming off of a boat in basketball games, and then to knock him out in the first round and win the championship and be the first person from there to ever win it. That, to me, is so crazy, right? So that's my number 1. And then the number 2 one was Anderson Silva.
Yeah.
When he fought Anderson Silva in London, that was one of the craziest things ever because he got his ass kicked in that, 3rd round where he got flying kneed.
I thought he was dead.
I mean, he looked like he was going to be unconscious, fucked up. And like he was saying in the interview, his face is half hanging off, blood running into his good eye. And then he proceeds to keep kicking Anderson's ass the next round. Has his best round that he ever had, beats Anderson's ass, and then wins the next round after that and wins a decision over Anderson Silva. That's crazy. And then, and that was before the title fight. So he beats Anderson in London and then knocks out Luke Rockhold and then fights Dan Henderson, who was the person who knocked him out at UFC 100, and then beats him too, and then fights GSP, and then fights Kevin Gastelum. It's like, you know what I mean? So those were my 2 main moments. And then my overall thing is that interview where he talked about his family. I just thought that was beautiful. I really did. I thought it was awesome to hear him talk like that. And then a point I think you got to always remember about Bisping was also brought up this week on a lot of different shows. But look at that guy's fucking record. I mean, just look at the ones I just named right there, right? He's been doing that for 12 years. We're just fighting the absolute baddest people for 12 years straight. I mean, he fought Vitor in his prime. He fought Luke Rockhold twice. He fought Dan Henderson twice. he never avoided a tough fight. He fought Rashad Evans back in the day, like UFC 67 or whatever. He was fighting really hard people from the very beginning to the very end, and arguably at the end, taking like the most ridiculous hard fights.
Yeah.
I mean, it was his career, to look back retrospective. I mean, it's really impressive.
I started to like him after the Anderson fight, and what's funny is him winning the title was amazing, and then but the 2 losses at the end almost made me like him even more.
Yeah.
Because the loss to GSP, the way he responded at the end and the way he went out, I was like, was incredible.
Yeah.
And then when he comes back to try and win, and on like 2 weeks notice, you like, to me, like that is the man's man. He is the John Wayne. I mean, it's come like, how do you do that? So to be that guy, even if you lose, just to roll with that, to me, it was incredible.
I mean, it's a metaphor for life, right? I mean, that's how you're supposed to be. Like that, he is a metaphor for life. And at the John Wayne thing, that's like perfect. He really is that guy. And like even Bisping says himself, is like he never had any natural gifts. That's another thing. He almost showed you that a normal guy can still be great. And I wonder how many people that will motivate.
And what did he say that he wanted to be remembered for? He wanted to be remembered for the guy who worked the hardest and showed that if you work hard, anything that you want is achievable.
It's crazy.
So it's very cool.
It was awesome. All right, so quickly, the Utica card, right? So the one crazy thing, right, was tiny, what is his name? Shorty.
Yeah, Jose Shorty Torres.
Yeah, man, that was so crazy, right? So if you guys didn't see it yet, it was, which I don't know how you couldn't. If you never watch MMA your entire life, it should have been on Instagram, where the other guy, what was the other guy's name?
Jared Brooks.
Yeah, dude. Jared Brooks shoots in on Torres, picks him up, and goes to slam him backwards and almost like reverse DDTs himself, knocks himself not completely out, but dazed enough to where he gets hammered on and put
his arms
completely
weren't
out.
working.
I mean, my God. It is one of the craziest knockouts I've ever seen. He straight up reverse DDT'd himself. That was insane. And the thing is this card for me just didn't have much to follow on it. But the main fight, Jimmy Rivera and Marlon Moraes, that fight is very important because that's like, you know, your top 4, top 5 guy versus each other. It's kind of like the who's gonna be next in line kind of fight. I hated that this fight was on the Utica card.
Well, yeah, because there was so much hype.
God, I love this fight, and it means so much for that division that I was like, damn it, I wish this would be on a main stage because no one knows who Jimmy Rivera is. If you're a purist, you more than likely know who he is, but your average guy has zero idea who Jimmy Rivera is. No idea. And Marlon, though he's highlight reel material almost every time he's out there, he's still only been in the UFC for the last like year and a half. So I don't know if that's enough time to get people to know who he is either. So it's like a guy that not everybody knows versus a guy that nobody knows. And I was like, shit, man, people don't even get to see how crazy this fight really is. It's kind of like the Sergio Pettis versus Joseph Benavidez this weekend. That is a sick fight.
Yeah.
Like that fight is so awesome. And to have that fight on a pay-per-view on the prelims, that is perfect placement because everyone's going to watch it. Everyone's going to get to see it. And if you're a purist, that fight is fire. To me, that's what this was. Going into this fight, I was so excited. I did not expect it to go this way. I really didn't. Because I think since we've never seen Jimmy in real trouble, I just didn't picture that yet. I don't know what it was because he's such a little tank. He can take punishment. He gets caught, but I never see him wobbled. And it comes out, Marlon Moraes comes out in 30 seconds and just catches him with the highest high head kick. I mean, it just catches him, clips him right across the top of the head, and just automatically knocks Jimmy down. He gets down and what is that position? I don't even know what to call that position.
Like the hip, where you set the arm on the hip?
Yeah, it's kind of like your control, almost like you would be wanting to go into a crucifix, so you're like hip to hip. It's kind of a wrestling on the side, and just smashes him to the face, and Jimmy just goes limp and knocks him out. I mean, it was devastating, and it was fast, man. And that head kick is beautiful to watch. I don't know if you watched it. I've watched it 200 times.
Yeah.
It was so cool. And Marlon, his interviews, he just comes off so lovable. It was a huge win, and he's so clearly now. I love that you get to wedge him into the title picture at 135.
He's such a likable guy, and the fact that he's been through a lot in life, and it's funny because Jimmy tried to shake him in this, and he didn't feel any of that.
Yeah.
He's so thankful for his corner and everybody who's in his camp. I mean, the love he has for Edson and Frankie Edgar is
and Mark Henry and all those guys.
God.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable, and he just, it's so cool to see a guy. To me, he comes off as just a true martial artist,
right.
and a guy who is humble. He goes out there, gets the job done, and is thankful for the people who taught him the things that he knows. And to me, it's an easy guy to like. He's put so much on the line to get to this point, and now he thinks he's ready for a title shot. And it's hard to argue with him.
I mean, he knocked out Aljamain Sterling with a head kick. You remember that one, which was a crazy KO. And then to go in there versus Jimmy Rivera, who was 19-0, undefeated, and then knock him out in the first round. I don't know how you could deny him. Jimmy Rivera was just getting ready to fight Dominic Cruz to see probably who was going to get the next title shot, and instead Jimmy ends up farting. He ends up fighting and farting on Marlon Moraes, and then for Marlon to knock him out now, I think it's kind of clear. Marlon knocked out, I think, the number 7 guy, and then he ended up knocking out the number 4 guy. The other top guys are in the title fight. You got Rafael Assunção out there fighting someone else. I don't remember who it was, but it was not. I think it was Robert Font. He's fighting him. I can't imagine that pushing him into getting a title fight because unfortunately Assunção isn't the most exciting guy in the world. So to me, Marlon should be next. And tell me you wouldn't love to see like the winner of Cody Garbrandt, TJ Dillashaw, knowing that the winner of that fight fights Marlon Moraes.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's fire.
That'd be incredible.
I would love to see that fight.
So a couple other quick hitters on there. Ben Saunders finished Jake Ellenberger with a
body shot.
Yeah, it was a knee. I don't know if it was to the liver or to like the floating rib, but he dropped him with that and finished him. Sam Alvey finished Jean Vellante, one of the most inconsistent fighter in the UFC. He lost the decision to him. So a couple more names there. Not a whole lot of guys there to really talk about, but just a couple quick hits there. So
UFC 225.
Yeah, let me pull that card up here.
The UFC 225 in Chicago. It is
best card in 6 months.
One of the craziest cards.
Best card since, what was it, 214? Was that the big one, the last real big one?
I don't even remember. My brain's fried right
with
now.
The 3 title
I got
fights.
off work and came straight here.
Yeah.
No relaxation in my brain at all. It's crazy. I can totally feel how my brain isn't working. Isn't that odd? Like I legit feel it now.
Yeah, you worked a full day and then you came here.
My brain's like, shouldn't you be relaxing right now?
No.
I'm usually talking to my baby, so I want to like talk and I want to talk about Frozen and go play with my Rubik's Cube.
There you go. That's what he's still on the Rubik's Cube now.
I'm thinking about it right now. I'm just like, what can I do?
All right, so let's talk about it from the
dude. Look at the UFC Fight Pass portion of it. Like when you got Oliveira versus Clay Guida. That is granted. Does that fight mean anything? Not really. Clay or Oliveira could win that fight. It doesn't really matter, but that's an exciting fight.
2 names right
I'm
there.
I'm really excited to see how that... Look, how is the third fight on the card Joseph Benavidez versus Sergio Pettis? Sergio Pettis, if he would have won his last fight, would have gotten a title shot. Benavidez is ranked number 2. What are we talking about here?
And then we have Rashad Evans, who is a legend, who is on there versus it was Anthony Smith.
Anthony Smith, yeah, that's a scary fight. That's another thing too. Evans is not fucking around, dude. He's still fighting scary guys. So somehow the Fight Pass prelims, I have to watch them.
Dude, I forgot so many fights on this card. I cannot believe this. Then we go up to the regular prelims. Ricardo Lamas versus Mirsad Bektik.
Yeah. Oh,
get out of
fire.
And then Claudia Gadelha versus Carlos Esparza. Are you kidding me? And then we finish off the prelims with Alistair Overeem versus Curtis Blaydes. Are you kidding me with that? That is ridiculous.
And then we have the people's main event. CM Punk versus...
What's his first name?
Michael?
Jackson?
Yeah, click him real quick. I always forget. Yeah, Mike Jackson. I knew I was right. Come on, man.
The fact that you called him Michael.
Hey, that's what his mom calls him.
Do you think he on purpose goes by Mike just for that?
Yeah. He's like, I don't want to be Michael Jackson, man. I dealt with that shit my whole life. But we got CM Punk. We got Phil Brooks versus
I love that
Mike
you
Jackson.
don't. So he won't call him CM Punk because he was mean to him one time.
Yeah, he was mean to me in Chicago, so fuck that guy.
There you go.
Somehow we're opening up the main card with an 0-1 versus 0-1 guy.
I love it.
Whatever. And then we have Andre Arlovski versus Tai Tuivasa. That fight is more than likely Arlovski's getting knocked the fuck out.
He's going to die. Yeah.
And then Holly Holm versus Megan Anderson. Come on.
What the fuck is it? This card is ridiculous.
And then we got a welterweight interim title fight with Rafael dos Anjos and Colby Covington. We can only hope that provides the ass kicking of all ass kickings.
If it goes the other way, I'm going to be real bummed.
I'm going to jump off the highest of high bridges. And then we have the 185 title of Robert Whittaker versus Yoel Romero 2. This card is crazy.
Dude,
stacked.
and Yoel sounds so ready. Oh my God. He is so scary.
He is absolutely terrifying.
The fact that guy had a neck injury that the doctors were like, oh no, if you ever do any combat sports again, you will be paralyzed.
He's like, yeah, I'm going to another doctor.
Yeah, that was his answer.
They're like, we will not sanction you for another fight. You don't understand. If you hit it wrong, you're going to be dead. New opinion. What? Well, I'm telling you, this is what I need another opinion.
Yeah.
He goes to this doctor that's like, yeah, it doesn't seem very safe. Look again. Okay, I guess it's safe. Sure, go.
There you go.
All right, thank you, sir.
They said that his neck muscles were so big that was the only thing that kept him from being paralyzed in the first place. That is
you
insane.
could be hit by a truck going 40 and you would be fine.
Oh my gosh. So that is going to be a ridiculous fight. And what's crazy about this is I feel like Robert Whittaker has been gone for so long now because of the injuries. People are sleeping on how good he is.
He's so good.
And this fight is going to be insane. It's going to be so good.
And what's really fun about this fight is they both have clear avenues to win. Another good thing is from a storyline, if you're just looking at it as a fan, it really doesn't matter who wins. It really doesn't matter. I don't care if Romero wins, what a story. And if Whittaker continues his rise to being a legit 185 monster, if he keeps winning these fights, Whittaker is going to be the biggest fighter from Australia ever. You know, yeah. And I'm interested to see if that continues going the way it's going. I'm interested to see if Romero continues to come back. I mean, dude. What if Romero just knocks him out or some shit? You know, Romero's got some crazy KOs on his record, and what if he just knocks him out?
I think my brain will explode.
The Romero era at 41 years old.
And dude, the way he's talking, he's like, I have no plans of stopping. I won't stop until I feel bad. I feel bad.
Look at him. I mean, I wouldn't stop either.
When you watch, there are videos out there of him in the gym where he has somebody on his back and he's jogging around the gym, and then he'll stop to look at the camera. He's doing jumping jacks and taunting the camera, saying basically talking shit.
Like,
saying,
I'm hungry.
I'm so in shape that I want to make all of you feel bad. It's ridiculous.
It's I love that. I love that fight because it's kind of like the TJ Dillashaw versus Cody Garbrandt. I love when you have two guys that separately, when you watch them fight, you're like, it couldn't be more clear that these are the best guys in the world in this weight class. And that's what this fight is. I know we went through the GSP shit and the Michael Bisping stuff and all that. I get all that. And I understand it happened for a reason because people took short notice fights and then GSP comes back. I understand. But this fight legitimizes 185. The winner of this fight is the best 185er in the world, period.
Absolutely.
Period. So, okay, let's go. Let's do predictions.
Okay.
All right, Joseph Benavidez, Pettis. Benavidez. If Benavidez looks vintage Benavidez.
I 100% I think Sergio Pettis has shown here recently that he doesn't step up to the plate when it comes to when he faces adversity.
True.
So I think that's for sure Benavidez on that.
And Benavidez has so many tools. He's so fast. His striking is really, really good. And I think being able to mix it up is going to keep Sergio mildly mixed up. Nor do I think that when they get to the ground, Pettis is going to have the grappling pedigree to be able to submit a guy like Benavidez. I think he's been around way too long. He's too crafty. I can't imagine. Granted, I know what's going to close this matchup a little bit more is the fact that Benavidez has been out for a while. He's been injured, so maybe there'll be rust. But in the past, he came back and beat guys that were monsters, like Henry Cejudo. And so he's coming back. Can he beat Pettis now? We'll see. I'd say Benavidez. I think the Rashad versus Anthony Smith. I'm worried about that fight.
R.I.P. Rashad.
I'm serious, man. Smith is a big motherfucker, and he hits hard, and he does not mind to get dirty. And I get worried when these older guys who what have we been saying about Rashad Evans?
He can't pull the trigger.
He can't pull the trigger. That's 100% what I was thinking. He can't pull the trigger, and that freaks me out because you know what? Smith ain't going to wait. He's not going to wait on him. He ain't going to wait for Rashad Evans to win this fight. Hurt. I feel like this is going to be a locomotive running through somebody. I'm terrified of that fight. As soon as I saw that matchup, I was like, oh, they're trying to tell him, hey, Rashad, you're done.
Yeah.
Like the last couple you remember didn't he fight Sam Alvey? He kept fighting, and then he fought Dan, the older dude.
Dan Kelly.
Yeah, Dan Kelly. Think about the people he's been fighting. He's been fighting slow, unathletic guys that are past their prime, and they are beating him. So they went and put him with like a 25-year-old, freakily built young guy who isn't scared of anything. I'm terrified of that matchup, and I think that becomes the brain injury fight for Rashad Evans. I hate to see that. I don't want to see him go out like that because I really like him. I respect him. I love him on the desk when he's there. That one freaks me the fuck out. What about Claudia versus Esparza?
Oh, look, Claudia all day.
She's gonna beat the shit out of Esparza.
This is her coming back and showing I'm still right there, and it also I think it's gonna push her right back into that title contention there
by beating a girl that used to be the champion at that weight.
Exactly.
What about Overeem versus Blades? I think this is an interesting one.
So
because you got to remember, Blades does have wrestling.
Blades has wrestling. Overeem tends to only get beat by the top guys, though.
Yep.
But his chin is questionable. But he still has so much power.
So much.
It's my heart wants to say Overeem, but my head says that Curtis Blades is going to continue his rise to the top.
It sucks, man. I really. It's like when I saw Overeem was going to fight. Ngannou. It's like when you look at it on paper, Overeem has more tools than almost everybody. He should win. And to get knocked out by a guy like Ngannou, it almost doesn't make sense. This is the same guy that won the K1 Grand Prix, who's one of the best strikers that heavyweight division has ever seen, but he's getting knocked out by a guy that's been doing MMA for 3 years. That's the crazy thing about the heavyweight division is just because you have the tools, just because you should be better doesn't mean you are and doesn't mean that's what will happen. And that's almost what I worry about in this fight. I feel like Blades doesn't have enough of anything to beat Overeem, but it doesn't mean he can't win.
Yeah.
It really doesn't. And it's not enough of a landslide to where it's like Overeem is clearly going to wax this guy. You got two kind of similar matches, right? Like Tuivasa and Arlovski, Curtis Blades and Overeem. You kind of got the same thing. You got the young surging guy versus an older vet who's got some questions on whether or not they're done or not. I think more than a prediction in this is going to tell you a lot about Overeem's future in this fight.
I agree.
I'm going to say that Overeem holds it together, plays smart. He realizes that the last time he was out there and he fucked around, got caught overextended, and Ngannou sent his head off the Pluto. I think that he's going to be overly cautious. He's going to go back to being the smart Overeem. Remember we were talking about that when he was on that nice run there for a little while, and he started being the smart Overeem that was being cautious and being the better striker and being smarter about things. I think he's going to be the smarter Overeem. I think he's going to win a decision, and everything will be okay.
We can only hope.
All right. What about your boy Phil Brooks Clearly, we're gonna have to just do these fights and be done, right?
Yeah,
because otherwise, this is a 10-hour podcast.
Yeah, we can't do that.
It's okay.
We have some good Google Trends,
super good ones.
I promise.
We'll have to push them.
I promise that then maybe we'll do another one next week.
Yeah,
we'll have to see.
Maybe just do a quick one.
Yeah, it'll be a quick one.
Okay.
So
your boy Phil Brooks versus my guy Mike Jackson.
I take Lee Powell in a fight.
I'll
over
beat
C. Brooks.
I'll beat the shit out of Phil Brooks.
C. Brooks.
I will beat the shit out of him.
I am confident that you could submit CM Punk.
I can beat one UFC fighter guaranteed.
Very quickly.
There is one that I can beat, and he is it.
Yeah.
And hell, if Mike Jackson fucks around, I might submit him too.
You could get in that weight class too. You'd be fine.
What weight class is it? 70? Oh yeah, I fucking walk under that.
You're good.
I'm walking 65 right now. I'd eat a Burger King burger on the scale.
Let's do a tournament style. You could take both of them out in one night.
Yeah, we do a round robin.
If you win both, then you get a contract.
Dude, that'd be sick. Then I end up on the contender. I need to make a phone call. So, who do you have in this? Do you know enough about either one of them to where you even give a fuck?
Fuck no,
dude.
No.
I'll tell you what. I'm taking Mike Jackson, and I'll only tell you that one reason why. I listened to some of his interviews, and from what I heard, he came from like a boxing background. Legit had boxing fights. He won a good amount of them. He has a lot more experience standing up. Just because a guy like Mickey Gall takes you down and submits you doesn't mean that you're junk. You know, like he was saying, he had an amateur career. Before he started this pro career, he's been out there and fighting and doing this way longer than Phil has been. I think he's got a good amount of experience and decent enough striking to where I can't imagine. I see Phil Brooks out there doing his workouts and doing his takedowns and it just looks so unnatural. Even after all this time, it's like it just doesn't look right. It's like if Mark Coleman or Mark Kerr were punching bags, when you're like a wrestler, it never looks right. I'm not saying that Phil is that wrestler.
What are you talking about?
What do you mean? So, I mean, he didn't come from amateur wrestling. He came from pro wrestling. So he's better than amateurs.
He's a pro, right?
Right, yeah. So he's better than Mark Kerr.
He doesn't need amateur.
Right.
He's probably got like so many pro wrestling fights.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, championships and everything. World championships, not the nationals. Something stupid. So,
well, I think his tagline was best in the world, right?
Oh, really? Was it really?
Yeah.
I never watched it.
It actually was.
I never watched it. So I think old Pepsi Cola Tattoo gets KO'd, and I'll always pick against him because, like I said, he was mean to me in Grant Park in Chicago. I walked by him and his old lady, me and my wife, tried to talk to him. He just ignored me while his old lady looked at me and tried to acknowledge, like, hey, there's this guy clearly trying to talk to you, and he's just like, fuck you. And so forever, I am fuck you, Phil.
I hope they both knock each other out because Mike Jackson comes off like a complete asshole as well.
I got my boy Mike Thriller Jackson. That's not his nickname.
I love it though.
All right,
that's perfect. That's the nickname from now on.
Arlovsky versus Tuivasa. I take Tuivasa by body bag.
yeah, and then he does a shoey afterwards.
Oh God, yeah. They put Arlovsky in the body bag and carry him out. R.I.P. Arlovsky.
Dude, it's gonna be a coffin match.
This is the coffin match. It's going with the theme of pro wrestlers. Tuivasa, that guy's got crazy power, and he's almost like a different sized Mark Hunt. He can take a shot. He hits so fucking hard, but I tell you what, that guy's footwork and movement is better than a guy like Mark Hunt. So he's a more mobile, high power guy. I feel like he's going to create the angles to be able to catch Arlovsky. It's only going to take one time catching him, and it's going to be night skis. Holly Holm versus Megan Anderson. I got to be honest, I don't have enough source material of Megan Anderson to give a legit prediction on this fight. I got to be honest.
I have watched her Invicta fights, and based on what I've seen there, to me it seems like she leaves herself open to strikes based on what I've seen, the small sample size, and I think that Holly will pick her apart and win a decision.
Yeah, I think the same. Just because of what I did see, I didn't see some highly educated striker out there, and to not be, to not be a person that's been in the UFC or a long kickboxing background, I can't imagine that you have the tools to be able to hang with somebody like Holly Holm. It just seems tough. And even if it's a decision, Holly likes to move a lot. She does a lot of single shots. She does a lot of low oblique kicks, all those kind of little tit for tat kind of things. I think that'll add up to probably a decision. Who do you have? And I mean, prediction wise, not who you want. Rafael dos Anjos versus Colby Chaos Nerd Bash Covington.
I'm taking RDA all the way.
Yeah.
100%.
I got to be honest. I was surprised when they made this fight because I thought that they liked Colby. Like they were really kind of pushing him and putting him in. I'm really trying to understand this matchup.
I think that Colby is going to be overly confident in his wrestling, and he's gonna be.
Do they not know that dos Anjos is a monster wrestler too?
Oh yeah.
I mean, he's a beast
with finishing power, which is something Colby doesn't have.
And that is the thing too. That I almost was looking at it like, do you remember Colby versus Damian Maia? And he couldn't always get Damian down. And Colby got hit and pieced up in that fight a lot. If that is Rafael dos Anjos is nowhere near the same striker as Damian Maia. Damian Maia is like a child when it comes to kickboxing compared to a guy like Rafael dos Anjos. That guy has kicks from all over, leg kicks, inside leg kicks, head kicks, the whole nine. His punching power is insane. His combinations are incredible. Rafael Cordero has been with that guy for a while now and has his striking on a whole nother level. He has fights where he picks people apart just with grappling, and he has fights where he picks people apart just with stand-up. If Colby ever fails on the takedown, he's done.
Yeah.
He's absolutely done. And then even when he gets him to the ground, I don't think he even is equipped with the ability to pass a guard or doing it. The only way Colby wins this is by a boring decision, and I don't even know how he could do that for 5 rounds without eventually getting fucked up. I don't see the avenue for Colby in this. I really don't. He may surprise and bring out some new things, but I've never seen the wrinkle in Colby's game that made me believe that this is even a winnable fight. I really don't see it.
I think RDA comes out. He is going to pass his guard. He'll be on top. I don't think that Colby can handle his top pressure at all, and I'm going to predict a head and arm choke finish.
Oh, my.
I'm going real deep.
I like that.
Deep cut.
So, dos Anjos. Okay.
And so then we have Whitaker versus Romero.
Man, that is a toughie.
So here's where my thought process is. Now, I know that Whitaker was not 100% in the last fight.
Right.
And I know the Romero was not 100% in the last fight. His weight cut was all jacked up. That's why we saw him get tired. But I think that his gas tank running out, which is not typical for him, affected the fight more than Robert Whitaker being injured. And so I think that I'm going to go with Yoel Romero because he's going to be more explosive in this fight, and I think he's going to finish Robert Whitaker.
Oh, my gosh. How dare you?
I think so.
It's possible. He's been finished before. Man.
By flying knee.
What an absolutely incredible fight. I mean, this is a really, really tough fight to look at. I think a lot of what you said, I totally agree with. The thing about Robert Whitaker is even if he was that 0.5 better, I mean, in overall MMA, I think Robert Whitaker is a better fighter. I really do. I think that's probably easy to say that. And like Kenny Florian said the other day, and I'd like to think the same thing. He always takes speed over power. But the problem is when speed has been out for the last year, and the speed guy has not been out there being active. He's coming off of an injury. He's coming off of surgery, while the other guy's been out being active, still fighting, testing the gas tank, going through training camps, knocking other ex-champions dead. I feel like it's almost like right place, right time for Yoel. I think it's perfect timing for him actually to take this title over. So I think Romero wins.
And what a story it will be.
It will be awesome.
So
all right.
Hopefully we will get some good fights, at least from that. We have a stacked lineup.
It's fun regardless.
Yeah. So
because there's going to be upsets. There's going to be all that stuff. And That's half the fun of it, right? Because the ones that we're talking about right now that should go a certain way, some of them are not going to go that way.
Yeah.
And that's almost what is tons of fun about it.
Absolutely.
I love it.
All right.
Got my boy Black Rob.
We went way longer than expected.
Yeah, we didn't want to do that at all. That's okay.
Yeah. We've been really gabby lately. You know that?
We're so gabby.
All right. So shout outs for me this week. I'm going to go Sarah Hasselbeck, Amber Addison. She's having surgery today. So good luck on that. And then Ben Messerschmidt. And then our boy Ray Hughes, who will be departing soon.
That kills me. Yeah, big shout out to our boy Ray, moving off the bigger and better things. He'll be out there living the dream, and we'll be envious of his new eyesight from the mountains of Colorado. We will miss him, and we love him. So big shout out to him. Big shout out to my boy Lance. Happy birthday!
Happy birthday,
and,
Lance.
Big shout out to my team from work. That's one I don't think nowadays we don't talk about the work stuff as much as we used to. You know what I mean? But it's like my team lately is the thing that kind of keeps my mind straight. Like at work, if I didn't have such a good, positive team underneath me, I'd be eating shit constantly. And without them, I'd probably lose my fucking mind. So big shout out to them. Big shout out to my wife and Joey and you and all my friends who helped me move. Obviously, that was like a fucking hard thing to do. We didn't hire movers. We didn't do anything. It was just guerrilla style, a bunch of friends loading up fucking cars. So I appreciate you guys. And we appreciate the listeners, and we'll be back.
My niggas like dough, like dro, nitro, my flow, nice clothes like whoa. We bag it, then flip it like whoa. Cars we jack it, then strip it like whoa. Fully equipment, front to back like whoa. Spitting on fiends that come for crack like whoa. Asking for shorts and shit, nigga like whoa. Half on this quote, now nigga that's whoa. Flow so properly, you'll see I'm whoa. Ain't no stopping me, I'm deep like whoa. Guns be popping, beat, we creep like whoa. Hear my name in these streets, it's like whoa. Must I pound the concrete like whoa. Fill his bitch ass, head to feet like whoa. Your man ain't whoa. The judge ain't whoa. COs ain't whoa. POs ain't whoa. Play yourself, I get the G.I. Joe.